Join us tonight as we talk about the Vikings wins over the Bears, previewing the Rams and the Vikings, and we have a special guest, Darren Doogie Wolfson, on this evening. So go get your drink and join us.
Welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. I am your host, Matt. I am joined by Ryan Ortega, Miles Gorham, producer Dave, and a special guest, depending on who you ask. Darren Wolfson is here tonight, right before Christmas. Hey, you made me say that in the intro, so
you followed the script perfectly. I appreciate that.
So how are you doing tonight, Doogie? I didn't get to see you last time I was on the show. I had something pop up, but I'm very appreciative of you hopping back on tonight.
I'm good, Matt. I'm COVID free as far as I know, so that's a win. I'm happy that my Gophers won today. They didn't play well in the first half against Wisconsin Green Bay, but played really well in the second half. So that's good. My buddy Johnny Tower at St. Thomas, they fell at the buzzer. They were up double digits at Denver all afternoon, end up losing literally at the buzzer. So I feel bad for my buddy Tower, my friends over at St. Thomas, but otherwise all is well.
You know, I know this is a Vikings Happy Hour show, but that Gophers team, they got a little fight to them. Ben Johnson's got that team playing right now. It's exciting to watch.
He does, and I don't know anybody. I certainly didn't think they'd be 10-1 right now. I don't know a lot of people. Heck, I'm not sure internally they thought they'd be 10-1 right now. The schedule certainly ramps up right after the first of the year. Just look at those 4 or 5 consecutive Big Ten games, Indiana, Illinois, I think maybe Michigan State, a trip to East Lansing is in that mix. It's a really tough opening stretch when they, get back to playing Big Ten games. But yeah, like I didn't have much of a bar, this year. Like to me, it's all about raising the recruiting bar, which Dave Thorson, Ben Johnson, the other assistant coaches will do. I think they're going to end up getting a pretty darn good 2023 recruiting class. They have a good 2022 recruiting class. That to me is what it's all about, looking 2-3 years down the road. So to me, anything that happens this year, heck, it's gravy, right? Like, if they can find a way to be a bubble team, fine. If they don't end up making it, so be it. But if they can play some compelling games in early March, get me to pay attention late February into early March, I love it.
Exactly. That's what it's all about. Ryan, I heard you crack a drink there. What are you drinking tonight?
Some Woodford Reserve. I had to dip into the whiskey. I didn't want any more beers. I took my son skiing today, and so I had like two beers out there. So I was like, I'm gonna switch it up.
I feel bad. We always drink on this show, and Doogie's always at work. He can't enjoy
cheers
a nice beverage with us. Miles, how about yourself?
Yeah, and trust
how are you
me,
doing
I was
tonight?
at the liquor store earlier today.
Oh, go ahead, Doogie.
Yeah, go ahead, Miles. Well, I was going to say I was at the liquor store earlier today, just shopping for some colleagues, some coworkers. So like I'm salivating. I can't wait to get home because I bought an extra bottle or two for myself.
There you go.
Well, you earned it. Yeah. No, I'm boring, so I'm just drinking tea. So I've actually, Ryan and Doogie, you both know and Dave, when you have kids, you always when your kids get sick, that means you get sick. I got tested for COVID negative, so I'm just sick. And so that's kind of where I've been the last week and a half. And I've just been up and down this little roller coaster. So not the funnest,
I hear straight whiskey is a really good cure for being sick. So why do you think I'm never sick anymore?
Yeah, right. Got to kill it off.
Too funny.
Well, I'm glad you're negative, Miles. I was in the same boat 3 weeks ago. I'm just now, for the first time in 3 weeks, I feel good. But I was battling just a cold, no fever. But I went into the Minute Clinic just to get checked out after testing negative for COVID, just wondering what the heck was going on. She actually said I had a low-level flu. I didn't even know you could have the flu without a fever, but she told me you have a low-level flu. But I was able to, persevere enough. But, it's going around. Judd Zolgad, who you guys know from Score North, he's just overcoming COVID. He just, he's been positive but he's been working through. Thankfully, he's boosted, and the symptoms have been minimal. He's been able to work all the way through, So, that is good. But, yeah, Miles, I'm telling you, I'm glad you're negative because I think we all probably know somebody right now that's positive. The numbers are crazy.
Definitely. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's make sure you take care of yourselves for sure. I like you said, Doogie, I think everybody right now probably knows somebody, and it's ramping up. So hopefully this holiday weekend, everyone's able to enjoy it with their families and be safe. So let's talk Vikings. They just came off a win somehow. The Bears gave them every opportunity to win that game, thanks to Matt Nagy and some turnovers. But before we dive too much into the game, I got some questions I want to ask Doogie here. And sorry if I'm catching you off guard, but what is the feel right now inside the Vikings organization? I know today it was brought up in Zimmer's presser. Someone talked about him being on the hot seat, to which he said, "Am I on the hot seat?" as a sarcastic response. What is the feel right now inside TCO Performance Center?
Well, guys have a lot to play for, right? There's a lot of guys playing for their next contract. There's a lot of guys on one-year deals. So regardless of what takes place the next 3 weeks, do the Vikings make the playoffs, don't make the playoffs, guys are playing for that next paycheck. With the salary cap about to spike pretty high, a lot of teams will have pretty good money to spend come March. So, guys are focused in that regard, to put good, play on film. You're not only playing for your current team, but you're playing maybe for your future team. So guys are locked in, but certainly there's, a desire to see this thing through, to finally get over that 500 hump. They haven't been over 500 since what, 2019? So guys are cognizant of that. They are aware of that. They think, hey, they can play with just about anybody in the league, that the NFC is relatively wide open, that, hey, why can't they make some sort of significant run in January? So I think for the most part, guys are focused. Guys are on the same page. They're ready to rock and roll.
Can I ask something real quick, Matt?
Yeah.
Doogie, you touched on the 500 thing, and obviously that's a huge thing. This team has put a lot of money and added a lot of key players. They pay a lot of. They're a top heavy roster, if we're being honest. And do you have a sense of like why this team has not been able to get themselves into a position to be a consistent playoff team the last few years? Because like as we've all noted, they have a lot of talent on the roster. I know there's injuries, I know things happen, but like overall, they have a lot of talent on the roster. Anything that you could pinpoint that kind of says why they're not getting themselves over the hump consistently?
Well, I mean, Mike Zimmer might tell you. He certainly told us in early September, not me specifically, but he sat down with my boss, my good friend, my colleague, Joe Schmidt, saying that he doesn't trust guys 26 through 53 on the roster, that it's only 25 guys on the roster that he fully trusts. So Zim will tell you that there's been some swings and misses going back the last few drafts. Now, on the 500 note, heck, if Greg Joseph makes a simple kick week 2, they win week 3 against Seattle, we wouldn't be noting that they haven't been over 500 since 2019. So it's such a fine line. The league has done such a good job creating, so much drama on a weekly basis. So many games come down to the final 4 minutes, the final 2 minutes. There are so many one-score games. So it's not like they're that far away. But I can tell you, it's not just Zim. Sure, Zim's the face of it, but there's others internally that will tell you that the depth of this roster going back the last couple of years just hasn't been maybe what it was going back 4 or 5 years.
But have we also not seen some of that depth play well? And like, especially you look at the D line depth, you look at some of the DB depth, maybe a little iffy, but like, we've seen guys like James Lynch and Armon Watts, like those guys step up. DJ Wanham had a really big game on Monday. Like, at least on the defensive side, that's the side I'm sure Zimmer's the most worried about, right? Like, I feel like we've seen some of those guys step up. So I wonder if that number has changed for him.
I do wonder if that number's changed too. I mean, I think specifically some of those D linemen that you noted. I mean, to me, it's amazing that the Vikings lead the NFL in sacks, right? With Danielle Hunter being out as long as he's been out, and he's not coming back this year. Everson Griffin being out. And by the way, I know Zim was asked about Griffin today. I'll give you guys a mini scoop. I'll have it on TV tomorrow. But Zim knows Everson Griffin's not coming back this year. He's just not. I mean, first and foremost, let's just hope and pray and that he can get his life in order. And his recent Instagram posts, alluding to the fact that he's bipolar, but at least at this point that's sort of under control. But in terms of him, doing any sort of conditioning, with the mindset of maybe coming back this year, no, that just hasn't been happening. And the Vikings have been told, don't plan on Everson Griffin coming back. But yeah, Wanham and Lynch, and go up and down the list of some of those D linemen. You're right, in the secondary, not so much. But I agree. I think if we framed that question of Mike Zimmer again, I don't know how much further he goes beyond 25.
Right.
I don't know if he's going to 37 or 40, but he might say, okay, I'll grant you a few guys, and I think
he can't give Rick too much
Andre
credit.
Patterson helping develop a lot of these D linemen.
He can't give Rick too much credit.
And along those lines, and this is more just opinion than anything, but along those lines, you've heard him mention, depth, which again could or could not be a shot maybe at Rick. And then you hear his comments about Kirk. And of course, this is kind of the three-headed monster, right? You got Kirk, Zim, and Rick. Is there like an accountability issue maybe that you feel like maybe all three of them lack that, right? I mean, you hear Kirk deflect a lot, Zim of deflect a lot. I don't ever hear anyone saying, this is on me. This is my fault. I didn't coach them up enough. I didn't make the right play. I didn't draft the right guys. Can you speak at least to your opinion around the accountability that those three have amongst themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll disagree a little bit. I think there's been times after games where Zim will put the blame on his shoulders. Yeah, Kirk Cousins oftentimes cites right after a game, let me look at the film. But you talk to him on Wednesday, a few days later, he'll admit, hey, I missed some throws. I did this, I did that wrong. Maybe not enough, so I'll grant you that. Spielman just, it's so weird to me. The guy spent a year on television, worked at ESPN, yet he don't want anything to do with doing interviews. I mean, here and there, but it's pretty amazing just how little he does, in terms of granting access to the media, especially like on the record being recorded. Like he'll do some sessions with us, but like he'll tell us specifically, you can't have your TV camera there. I'll talk to you, but just take down notes. You can process report what I'm saying, but I don't want to do it on camera. And I'm like, Rick, you spent a year on ESPN. Like, come on, you're plenty comfortable in front of the camera. Like, that to me is one of the great mysteries. But yeah, I mean, I think some of those guys are in job saving mode. I think Zim's probably been in job saving mode for a while. I think that's what he was doing back in early September when he was talking about the lack of depth, starting to set up, hey, like if this thing goes south, it's because I don't have enough bullets to fire. So just trying to put himself in a position to be back in 2022. Because realistically speaking, if Mike Zimmer ends up losing his job in a few weeks, I don't think he's getting another head coaching job. We can argue whether he should or shouldn't, but I just don't think a franchise is hiring 65-year-old or maybe 64, whatever he is, mid-60s, Mike Zimmer. And I know there's Pete Carroll's team out there, and he's 70, and maybe Pete Carroll gets another job, but I just don't think Zim's getting another head coaching job. He can get a defensive coordinator job, snap of the fingers. I mean, he's got a lot of friends. He's highly thought of in league circles, but I just don't think he's getting another head coaching job. So it's now or never. So I think he began that process back in training camp, laying the foundation, at least, publicly to some extent for the Wilfs to realize, hey, if the year doesn't go as planned, because remember, preseason internally, the expectations were far higher than the 7th seed. Trust me. I mean, they were talking, hey, we're going to win the NFC North. Hey, we can make a significant run in January. They're not happy with the 7th seed. They'll happily take the 7th seed at this point, but that wasn't the plan preseason. But I'm telling you, I think a lot of it was Mike Zimmer laying the groundwork for, hey, if you're going to fire me, I just want to lay out the evidence as much as I can publicly that this isn't all my fault.
So I do have a quick question or follow-up off of that. So obviously we've talked about how the expectations were a lot higher. So this is kind of a two-headed question. What at this point in time, what do you think the likelihood is that Zimmer is retained as head coach next year? And if he's let go, I know you mentioned Pete Carroll's steam. Miles was talking to us earlier about maybe some Doug Peterson steam being interested in this job. What do you know right now about Mike Zimmer's spot as head coach and maybe some potential fits to replace him?
As we sit here at 8:19 on the night of December 22nd, do I think the Wilfs, Ziggy and Mark specifically, there's other Wilfs involved, but those two specifically, do I think they've come to the conclusion that they are firing Mike Zimmer? I don't. Do I think on background, doing their due diligence on some potential candidates, including at least maybe one of the names you just laid out, Matt? Yeah, I think that's been happening. I think that's been happening for a number of weeks. I'll say this much. I don't know who Charlie Walters of the Pioneer Press is talking to specifically. I have an idea, but I certainly won't say it publicly. But I don't know 100%. But I have a feeling it's somebody very, very, very high up. So he, when he's writing the names Doug Peterson and Pete Carroll, he's not doing it randomly. And I don't think it's somebody planting something on, Peterson's behalf or Carroll's behalf that it's coming from, the agent for one of those guys. I think it's somebody more tied into the Vikings ownership group. I do, without specifically naming names. So I think there's some legs there. I do, so, I'd keep an eye on certainly those two names. But like, to me, like, how could you not go the route if you're going to make a move? How do you not go the route of bringing in an innovative offensive mind, whether it's a Byron Leftwich, if you think Eric Bieniemy is that guy, certainly Kellen Moore in Dallas has enough fans across the league. Like, I don't know how you wouldn't go that route. Like, I don't know how you could justify hiring 70-year-old Pete Carroll or even 60-something-year-old or late 50s-something, Doug Peterson, even with him winning the Super Bowl here in the Twin Cities. Maybe you could sell Doug a little bit more than Pete, but I still think you need to go with one of these up and comers. Somebody that's knocking on the door of being a head coach. But I'm just telling you, I don't think any sort of final determination has been made here in late December. I really don't. And I think Zim's earned that right. He's earned the benefit of the doubt. There's been a lot of good. If he ends up losing his job in a few weeks, I think we'll look back and say he certainly wasn't a failure as the head coach. I know we probably wanted a couple more playoff victories, beyond the two, including, one via miracle, although I guess maybe the Blair Walsh miss at TCF Stadium, against Seattle, maybe that evens out the miracle with Walsh missing the short field goal. So maybe it should have been two, regardless. And people are going to be upset, blown out in Philly in the NFC title game, blown out in San Francisco in the divisional round after winning the first round game in New Orleans January of 2020. But there's been a lot of good. But I'm just telling you, Matt, I really don't think, maybe I'll be proven wrong on this, but I really don't sense, and certainly I've been digging on this. I mean, this is top of my mind, work-wise as much as anything, Mike Zimmer's future. And I just don't have the sense the Wilfs have come to the firm conclusion they are cutting the cord, whether that's January 10th or if they make the playoffs, January 16th if they play that Saturday, or if they end up playing that Sunday, whatever that Sunday is, January 16th, if they end up cutting the cord on Monday, January 17th. I just don't think we're to that point. Could we get to that point? Absolutely. If I had to bet, yeah, I think we'll probably have some news sometime in January. But I'm just telling you, I don't think they've come to any final conclusion right this second.
Sorry, my mic was muted there. That's the answer I was looking for, I guess. Saying I'm probably one of the few Mike Zimmer stands within this climbing the pocket group. So thanks for answering that one.
Well, I mean, Matt,
I
I'll
did
say
have
this
another.
much: like, be careful. I mean, my message to some Vikings fans would be careful what you wish for. Like,
Yeah.
How much better are you doing than Mike Zimmer? It's the same argument I have with Kirk Cousins. Like, yeah, I mean, there's warts there. Don't get me wrong, but are you immediately doing better than Kirk Cousins if you decide to move on from him after the year? I mean, just be careful. Now, some Vikings fans might say, you know what? Like, to get to where we want to get to, you got to hit rock bottom first. And so we're fine hitting rock bottom in 2022. But like, as far as what I can tell with the Wilfs, knowing their doings enough. They've been owners now for almost 2 decades. I mean, there's a lengthy track record there now with the Wilfs. They're not interested in hitting the reset button. So they can find different ways to still be pretty darn competitive in 2022. And if that's the plan, and as far as I know, that's the plan, to be competitive in 2022. There's probably a strong likelihood that Kirk Cousins is the quarterback. Yeah, maybe we do have a different head coach, but like, I don't think they're blowing this thing entirely up. Like, I'd be surprised if it's fully blown up, with Rick Spielman dismissed, Zimmer dismissed, and Kirk Cousins traded. I think if Rick Spielman, if something happens on Spielman, do they go the John Elway route, right? Where he's still a part of the organization. Like, I would not be shocked if something like that occurred. Because I do think you can make the case, if you're going to fire Zimmer and Spielman are attached at the hip in many ways, but I don't think they're going to outright tell Rick to hit the road. I think there's too tight of a relationship there with the Wilfs going back to 2006 with Rick. I would be surprised if they completely cut the cord on Rick Spielman.
To push back real quick, Doogie, on the being be careful what you wish for. Like, I think the point for me, at least as a fan, is we're not good enough for me to be to accept what's currently going on. So I'm not as worried about taking a step back, because they haven't done enough to take that step forward to justify continuing down the same path that they've been going. Especially when you talk about having 8 years of Zim and a decade of Rick Spielman. With those two guys specifically, then you tie in Kirk and his contract and those things. It's kind of like we've had a large enough sample size of what this has been with those guys. And to your point about sometimes you need to take a step back to take a step forward, we kind of have seen where this regime can go, and it's not as far as we'd like it to go. And I think everybody could probably agree with that. And to that same point, it's you got to try something new at some point, because the same stuff over and over again is keeping them in that 500, maybe a game over 500 realm, and that's just not acceptable.
That's fair, Miles. I mean, that's completely fair, and that's why if I had to predict, we're going to see some sort of change come January.
Right.
I just don't know if they're going to blow the whole thing up, but I can certainly see a coaching change coming, and that's plenty fair. We can also debate what exactly is a step backwards. Like, they're going to end up finishing this season 9-8 or 8-9. You know, you still have enough talent in place where, you know, is 5 wins if they end up with 5 or 6 wins. That's not any sort of significant step backwards, you know, and based on last year, what were they last year? Under 500, right? Or were they 7-9 last year? Can't even remember, but you know, they weren't great last year. They weren't over 500 last year. So if you look at the totality of 2 consecutive seasons, you know, step backwards really isn't that much. You know, I have a hard time believing they'd be like in the Detroit Lions boat, right? Or the Jacksonville Jaguars boat. There's still too much talent in the building, even with the guys that are expiring contracts and the change we may end up seeing in terms of the roster. There's still going to be enough really good players in the building that, it would be hard for them to really hit rock bottom. You know, so that's why, I think the idea is they're going to find a way to compete next year. You know, make a change with the coach, you know, bring somebody in that can manage the clock a little bit better, you know, make better in-game decisions. You know, maybe find a way to keep Andre Patterson around, have him coordinate the defense. He knows the personnel. Keep his son on staff. You know, find a way to keep that relationship going and go from there. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if something along those lines is what ends up taking place.
To your point, quick, about not blowing everything up, and Kirk Cousins, you know, you can see him sticking around, obviously, because they don't want to just tear everything down. Obviously, he's hitting his last year of his contract. No team wants to go into the final year of a contract with a quarterback. So either, you know, again, to your point, you either trade or extend. And again, if you're going into this, I don't know, pseudo retool, rebuild, whatever you're talking with a new coach, do you really want to, you know, be extending a quarterback and of that price? And if you do, for how long, right? I mean, obviously I can probably get behind a 4-year extension or something like that, but when you keep doing these 2-year extensions, it just leaves you zero flexibility, and it really kills your cap, right? Because you just can't like move money around and flex. So what route, again, I know this is all speculation, but like what route would you see in that scenario playing out? Do you see us handing out a 2-year contract?
Well, I mean, I'll
trying
say
to
this
go
much.
long term, or
yeah. I mean, I think what we know. I mean, I don't think it's speculation. I mean, I think it's common sense that we know that Kirk Cousins is not playing next year under his current terms, right? So there's something that needs to happen with that contract. Heck, if he gets traded, his new team would give him an extension, rework his 2022 cap number. If he's here, the Vikings are going to rework his 2022 cap number. You can't have him on the cap at that number next year. I forget the exact number, but it's
45.
North of 30. Heck, is the cap number 45? Is salary 35? The cap hits 45. I don't have it right here in front of me, but it's an absurdly high number. We all know that. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would be a 2-year extension, a 3-year extension, 4-year. I just know that he can't be here. He can't be anywhere under the terms currently of his 2022 number. The Vikings have an excellent relationship with his agent, so, you know, I can see Rob Brzezinski working his magic. By the way, if they end up making a change with Rick, I would bet a lot of money Rob's not going anywhere. You know, if they brought in, you know, you name the candidate, Rob Brzezinski's still going to be this team's capologist. So Rob can always find a way. But I don't know. You know, I mean, I guess I could guess that you'd go at least, you know, 2 years out, you know, maybe more realistically 3. That seems to be kind of the hot spot with Cousins, 3 years. So extending 3. Do you have any sense? You know, I guess if I had to guess, but all I know is you're not having him under that 2022 number. You're just not.
You have any sense, Doogie? So like that's been my biggest holdup with Kirk more than anything is I'm all for players taking and getting as much as they can, take as much of your leverage as you can and use it and maximize your dollars. Every player should when they get that opportunity. So I'll never fault a player for it. But at a certain point, when it's Kirk Cousins, it's not even giving money back, but it's the length of the contracts because he keeps the shorter deals to keep the leverage, right? The Vikings have to keep giving shorter deals because they have no other leverage. So the question is, at some point, does Kirk decide, I want to solidify Minnesota as my home, as my place, as the place I want to retire, whatever, long term, decide that he'd rather do a long term 4 or 5 year extension and just kind of be done with it, and in that capacity decide that could help the team longer term, rather than this every year the Vikings have to keep pushing money out further and further because they can't touch his contract. They have to touch Adam Thielen's. They have to touch all these other guys, Anthony Barr. Any sense on that? And again, I'm very much for players doing what they got to do, but at some point it feels like this road and that Kirk's going down either has to end, or they can't keep doing the short term.
Yeah, well, I mean, Miles, my sense is Kirk, team friendly and Kirk are not words you're going to end up using in the same sentence. You're just not.
Yep.
Now
sure.
He may offer some sort of flexibility. I'm not suggesting, no chance, but in terms of some sort of team friendly, and we can debate what exactly a team friendly extension would look like, but I'm just telling you, no way. I don't see it. There's no reason. There's nothing to suggest that Kirk Cousins, and you're right, it's all about, maximizing a pretty finite amount of time to maximize your earning potential. I don't see him bending on that. Miles, I would be shocked if he bended on that. I really would. There's nothing to suggest, and I'm not going to hold that against him. You're right. It's such a short amount of time, especially in this sport. Other sports, but specifically this sport, more so than others. He's not. I'd be shocked. I really would. I've been proven wrong before. I've been shocked plenty of times, but I would be shocked on this one if he bended a ton. Maybe a little bit, but I don't see him bending a ton. I really don't.
And that's why they got to move on, in my opinion. But again, that's another debate we can have later on.
I want to be cognizant of time. I know, Miles, you said you only had a half hour. I don't know how much time you have tonight, Doogie.
Yeah.
But I did want to kind of shift the focus back to the current season. I think we're getting too off-season heavy when we still got 3 games to go. I know there was some fans were kind of riled up. Was it yesterday when Danielle Hunter was removed from the COVID list, and a lot of fans started to think he was back. But I do have a question for you, because we've seen it done before with this torn pec. Is there any sense that if we made the playoffs, Danielle Hunter could make a return, or is his season just absolutely done?
Yeah, Matt, I think it's the latter.
Okay.
I have not been told. Now, the guy I'm trying to dig on, I wish I had the answer for you, is Irv Smith Jr. When he underwent that meniscus surgery, back in the summer, it was viewed as a 4 to 5 month type recovery. Well, we're now at the 4 month mark. Zim was asked about Irv Smith Jr. on Saturday. I'll just tell you, reading the body language of Zim, it didn't look real encouraging to me, but I'm reading between the lines somewhat there. I've been chasing an Irv Smith Jr. update. Unfortunately, 3 people that would know stuff haven't texted me back yet, but I've been chasing that for the last 48 hours. So that's the one I'm trying to find out on. I would be shocked if Danielle Hunter comes back, and I'm telling you, Everson Griffin, they've been told he's not coming back. Adam Thielen as well. He met with us today. I can tell you, when he initially got hurt, I guess it would have been the Detroit game. That was December 5th. It's a grade 2/grade 3, right on the border of grade 2, grade 3 of that high ankle sprain. I mean, that's typically like a 5, 6, 7-ish week recovery. And so Adam Thielen has no business playing against the Rams. He really has no business playing against the Packers, and probably doesn't have business playing week 18 against the Bears. Maybe if they make the playoffs, then he could come back. But he told us today, and I know he's wired differently. Dalvin Cook's wired differently. Adam Thielen's wired that same different way. Adam Thielen was trying to get back for the Pittsburgh game. I'm not making this up. He was trying to fight like heck to play in that Thursday night Pittsburgh game. Okay, that was a bit aggressive. I knew when he went to Chicago, flew on the plane, he woke up Monday morning with the mindset, I'm playing tonight against the Bears. And Andrew Kramer, the Star Tribune, put the video out. We have some video that we shot pregame. I mean, I've seen the video. He wasn't moving very well. Like, you saw him moving pregame Monday night. You're like, yeah, he's going to be out still for a while. But I'm telling you, he's wired so differently. They may find a way. Maybe he's used more as a decoy. And, I don't know if he plays this Sunday. This Sunday might be pushing it pretty good. But maybe he's back for one of those games in January, if not the Packers game, the Bears game. But, that'd be the other one I'm keeping an eye on. I don't think it's a season-ending injury. So I do think we'll see Thielen back at some point this season. And Irv Smith Jr. is the other one I'm trying to dig on. So if I have an update, I'll throw something on Twitter or on Channel 5 or on Score North in the next 24 hours or so. But on Daniil, I would not anticipate Daniil coming back this season.
Yeah, Miles told me not to really ask that question. He's like, "There's no way he's coming back," but I just had to double check, right?
He tore his pec. I was like, "How is there in any way in hell that dude's coming back in a month and a half?"
He's not, and trust me, he's another. I mean, they have a lot of guys in that locker room that are freaks of nature, right? That are wired completely differently, and I'd put him in that category. But yeah, torn pec, Miles. Yeah, you know it. He's not coming back in late December, early January. I'm sorry. We'll hopefully see Daniil Hunter next year. There's some work to be done in that regard, but I think we'll see Daniil Hunter here next year. I really do. They'll get that work done. But yeah, he's not coming back this year.
Fair enough. Miles, anything before you take off here?
No, I just want to say thanks, Doogie. This has been great. The Vikings are a long shot to make the playoffs, but hey, it's in their hands. Make the playoffs, right? Like that. What else can you ask for? They put themselves in this position, so go get it done.
Absolutely.
Miles, call me nuts. And by the way, I'm glad to do this. I appreciate you guys having me on. So thank you. I think they make the playoffs. I do. I think they beat the Rams, and I think they beat the Bears, and I think 9-8 gets them in. Maybe I'll be proven wrong on that one.
Yeah.
But I think they find a way. And I get it. Philadelphia's schedule is incredibly favorable. I also saw the Eagles head coach now has COVID. Miles Sanders got dinged up in last night's game. Philadelphia isn't all that good either. So they could easily, Philadelphia could lose to the Giants on Sunday. If I had to bet, Philly probably beats the Giants on Sunday. But, I'm not convinced Philadelphia's running the table to get to 10-7. So the Vikings would have the tiebreaker as far as I can tell. 9-8 Vikings, 9-8 Eagles. I think the Vikings find a way. I do. And maybe New Orleans has something in them, but going back to Sunday night, I just don't see how that offense is capable. I really don't. The defense is great. Take it. Maybe they beat Miami on Monday. I'm looking forward to that game on Monday. Saints-Dolphins is a good Monday night game. But I think the Vikings find a way, and I don't trust the Saints. I don't trust the Saints enough. I don't trust the Eagles enough. So I think the Vikings get in as the 7th seed.
Somebody's got to make it. So why not the Vikings?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's to their benefit, that a couple years ago or whatever it was last year, the league added a 7th team in each conference. Maybe wasn't the wisest choice. You're probably going to have a team that's maybe not worthy of making the postseason make it year in and year out. Maybe it's multiple teams. Heck, we saw Washington last year win the NFC East with a less than 500 record. So heck, you could win your division and still not be a worthy playoff team. But yeah, it's not going away. Heck, if anything, in a few years, the league will add an 8th playoff team to each conference. Trust me, they want to monetize the postseason as much as they can. So they're not going to subtract playoff teams. If anything, they'll one day add playoff teams. But I think they find a way. You're right. Somebody Miles has to make it as the 7th seed.
Yeah. I
think it'll end up being the Vikings. Now, there might be some people watching and listening to this saying, are you nuts? The Rams are going to beat the Vikings on Sunday. You're a fool. The Rams are going to find a way to win that game. I just think short week, having to travel. I think there's a lot of things in the Vikings' favor heading into Sunday. The Rams have been starting slow the last few weeks. The Vikings can jump up on the Rams, find a way to get up 7-0, 10-0, maybe 14-0. And I think, Zim's got the book on Matthew Stafford enough. I think they can fluster him enough. I think the Vikings find a way. It'll probably be another one-score game, I'm sure. But I think the Vikings
it's going to be a one-score game.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's a touchdown at the buzzer, right? The Bears made it a one-score game because of that touchdown at the buzzer. Yeah, figure one way or another, somehow, some way, it's going to be a one-score game.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if my body can take many more games like that, but I'm in it for the long haul, so
Well,
I hope you're right.
Buckle up, Matt. It's coming.
I've always been.
Well,
I'm gonna go.
I just want to say thanks and happy holidays and Merry Christmas and happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for hopping on, Miles.
Thanks,
Doogie.
Miles.
How much time we got left with you?
I got a couple minutes. I better go start editing our 9 o'clock sports hits, though. We've got. Heck, I got to look at the rundown, but we've got something we're featuring. Andre Patterson had a great soundbite today about DJ Wanham, so I got to go track that down in our computer system, and I got to cut the Gopher basketball highlights for I think 9 o'clock. I did, but the 10 o'clock news. So I got a few more minutes though.
Okay, well, let's ask just a couple more questions here. Mine will probably be a little bit easier because I feel like the story's already out there, but something that I feel like came and went pretty quickly without much conversation. A lot of people have shut it down, but Bashad Breeland getting released. Obviously, we heard the story from multiple reports this past weekend of a dispute on the field. You know, Rick Spielman had to step in. Is there anything that we don't know that you maybe could tell us that went on, or what kind of led to just his departure? Because I can't imagine it was just an isolated incident. I feel like there might be more to this story than we're led to believe.
Sure, there's more to the story. I'm shocked he made it this far, that he made it all the way to Saturday. Like if I had to bet, I would have said he was getting released, weeks prior. I'm not even quite sure why they signed him to begin with. Like there's enough of a track record there. There just is. I know Zim was desperate for some DB help, but they should have probably gone a different direction. Drake Kirkpatrick or, somebody of that ilk that was out there at that time over Bashad Breeland. But yeah, I mean, it culminated on Saturday. Dalvin Cook was front and center. Dalvin deflected all questions today about what took place on Saturday, but he squarely was in that mix. Zim was in that mix. The DB's coach was in that mix. Yes, Spielman eventually brought Breeland up to the office. I mean, if this was an isolated incident, maybe they could have found a way to dismiss it, even with his track record. But yeah, he had been a disruption at other points during practice. There's a lot of stuff that happens in practice that we don't hear about.
I'm sure, yeah.
Or maybe I end up hearing something, but like, what the heck am I going to do with it? Like,
right.
There's a story about one of my colleagues, and I'm pretty sure he's spot on. I think I know where he got it from. Said that there was something with one of the Vikings star players on Friday, that there was a little brouhaha, and the player had to go get an eye exam just to make sure that there was no cornea damage. Sounds like the player was fine. There was nothing there, but it was to the point of he had to at least go get his eye checked. There's stuff like that happens all the time in practice. It gets chippy. It really does.
I bet, yeah.
There's a reason why they kick us reporters out after, 8 minutes or so. They don't want us seeing a lot of that stuff. So with Breeland, yeah, I mean, as far as I know, nothing like overly crazy. But yeah, I mean, he's got the motor mouth, right? A lot of trash talking, a lot of egging guys on, being physical, maybe when you don't need to be physical. Yeah, I'm just telling you, Matt, like, I'm surprised he made it all the way until, mid-December. I really am. Like, I would have put the over under if you had asked me. I would have put the over under like, the Packers game, November 21st. I would have said by that time he'll be long gone. So I mean, he made it longer than I would have thought.
Ryan, Dave, any last questions here for Doogie?
No, we're almost in the holiday time, which means almost to the new year. Again, we only have a couple games left. What's been your favorite storyline this year?
My favorite storyline? That's an interesting question. Let me see if I can tap dance enough in my brain to come up with my favorite storyline. I mean, something that probably doesn't get enough love is is how much work Adam Thielen, his foundation does. I mean, they announced today, making significant contributions to a number of charities in town. I don't think people realize the amount of work. It's not just the money, but it's also the time that he pours in, his wife pours in, others, part of, his agent, and the agency and a guy named Luke and some others behind the scenes, just the amount of work they do to give back. Heck, one of my favorite stories was Dalvin Cook getting his degree, going back to the summer, dedicating this year to his late father. We're fast approaching the 1 year remembrance of his dad dying. His dad passed away late December of last year. Otherwise, I mean, I just think the roller coaster, like, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this, right?
It's crazy.
Winning when maybe they should have been losing, like the Detroit game here, the game in Carolina, potentially, certainly the Detroit game here. Then losing when we thought, like, how could you lose, right? Like the game in Arizona, some others. So just the roller coaster. Like, I can't recall, any sort of roller coaster quite like this. Trust me, they've provided, plenty of drama throughout the year, always providing fodder. But I don't remember it ever quite being like this. Then the easy answer would be just Justin Jefferson, right? Like,
Yeah.
I get it. Cooper Kupp's in a different stratosphere. Maybe Cooper Kupp should be the MVP of the NFL this year. Like, I don't think he's going to win it, but who is the MVP? You can make a case Cooper Kupp should be the NFL MVP. And certainly Devontae Adams in Green Bay is incredibly special. Tyreek Hill, some others. But Justin Jefferson this fast, ascending all the way up to, we can debate, is he number 3, number 4, number 5? But, like, he's certainly one of the 5 or, 6 best receivers in the game. This happened really, really fast. Thank you, Philadelphia, for taking Jalen Reagor, allowing Justin Jefferson to fall to the Vikings. So just his brilliance. And I don't think Harrison Smith gets enough love. Maybe it's just that position, the safety position just isn't as sexy as some others. But, him continuing to play at a really high level. He'll one day be in the Vikings Ring of Honor. So let's appreciate just how brilliant, how good Harrison Smith continues to be as he's now in his 30s.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah,
the Vikings have led all 14 games this season, and 13 of them have been within one score. You talk about that roller coaster, that is absolutely insane, and I don't think it's been done before.
I don't think it's been done either. I mean, I guess somebody call Elias Sports Bureau or ESPN Stats and Info, but I can't imagine that's ever been done before. You're right. So just, heck, I can only imagine, being a writer on Deadline, having to, hit backspace how many different times, late in the fourth quarter of a game where you have your story written and you got to rewrite it. And, we've been in some interesting spots, like the Dallas Sunday night game. We were right on TV, the second the game ended, just timed out, where we do a roundtable every Sunday night on Channel 5. And that game went all the way until like 10:35. And that's what time we hit on Sunday nights, right around 10:35. And so, like, the game literally ended and we popped up on TV, and it's like, I'm still trying to digest what the heck I just saw. Like, did I really just see Cooper Rush, lead the Dallas Cowboys to victory over the Vikings? And I'm still trying to comprehend what I saw. Yet you got to hop right on the air and be coherent and, come up with some, at least semi-intelligent takes. And, so there's been some interesting moments like that. But yeah, I can't remember anything quite like this. And that's why, like, it's darn near inevitable. Sunday against the Rams, it's going to come down to the final 4 minutes or 2 minutes. I'd imagine at Lambeau, even though the Packers will have a ton to play for, presumably the number 1 seed, I imagine on January 2nd, that game's going to come down to the fourth quarter. Maybe not quite the 4-minute mark. Maybe it's a little bit earlier, but I imagine that will be a 1-score game. And I don't know what the heck the Bears will have to play for week 18. But even so, we just saw them with a bunch of backups on Monday night be competitive. So I'm sure the Bears will find a way to make that game, January 9th. I'm sure they'll find a way to make that game competitive here.
Well, Courtney said this week she has gone to typing 3 versions of the story. She has 3 Word docs open.
Yeah.
Going into the last 2 minutes to figure out which one she's going to finish and publish.
I can't blame her.
Bet. Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine, her and Ben Gessling and Chris Thomason and those guys just, having to file, pretty quick after the game that those outlets, ESPN, TwinCities.com, StarTribune.com, want something that they can post snap of the fingers when the game ends. And she's pretty darn smart to have 3 different drafts for sure.
Well, Doogie, we
man.
want to thank you for being third time to the show. You've been fantastic. We would love to continue this relationship as the rest of the season, hopefully the playoffs go on and into the off season. If you're up for it, you've been awesome.
Always up for it, yeah. As long as we can match up schedules, you know that. Always happy to be on. Matt knows how to track me down, so yeah, plan on it. Let's do this again in a few weeks, sometime in January.
Sounds great.
Absolutely. Doogie, thank you so much. Have a happy holidays with your family. Stay safe. And we'll hit you up hopefully when the Vikings make the playoffs, right? Let's hope for that.
Absolutely, Matt. Yeah, and for everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Heck, stay positive, test negative, I suppose. Have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas. Happy New Year to everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Thank
Doogie.
you, Doogie.
Merry Christmas.
See you guys.
See ya. And we'll flip to a 3 window, and I got to get everybody in the right spot.
Yes. I mean, we can go any spot, really.
Oh, I got to get you over there, and I can't see it because something's in the way.
I know I haven't called it out yet, but everybody in the chat, thank you. I know there were a lot of questions firing. We only have Doogie stayed on for a lot longer than I thought tonight. I'm very appreciative of that. He's becoming a very good friend of the show here, and hopefully we can have him, especially in the off season. Doogie in the off season is going to be just a great person to be on this show. He's going to have all those scoops you heard tonight with Everson Griffin. That one, he's digging for that Irv Smith Jr. scoop. Tonight talking about how the Wilfs have not decided yet on Mike Zimmer's future as the head coach, which for some is bad news, for others is good news. I would be on the latter side of that. But we still have a little
Doogie tonight.
We still have a little bit of show left to go, and Ryan has been quiet tonight, rightfully so, right? I mean, we had a guest of honor, but let's fly through the quick recap of the Bears game. Let's fly through previewing the Rams. Let's do a score prediction, and let's head out to the holidays. So, Ryan, Dave, what are your thoughts on Monday's night's victory over the Chicago Bears?
I've learned that we just need to, I guess, take the victories as they come and be grateful for them. It stinks that, we had a prime opportunity to completely get rid of this one score game mentality and really, and I know we basically did, right? They scored in the final play, but get rid of this one score mentality and actually blow a team out. And we were in a prime position to do so. Obviously it's a interconference game, or I'm sorry, interdivisional game. So it's always going to be played tough, but I mean, with them not having a starting member in their secondary, down, some key players and for us to not be able to execute, effectively on offense. I mean, it was quite disappointing. Obviously, they really mitigated our run game, which obviously last week went off for 200 plus. So we are expecting at least some positive work there, and that was pretty mitigated. And then I don't know what it was. Kirk Cousins just wasn't on his game. Part of that was offensive line. I know Akeem Hicks just completely had a day, both in the run game and in the pass rush game. But at the same time, there were times where Kirk had opportunities and missed throws or whatnot. So, or we missed catches. So I think it was overall offensively was just a poor showing. Glad we got out of the way because we won't be able to afford to be able to do that next week. We're not going to be playing a beat up Justin Fields and offense, a beat up offensive line for the Bears. That the Bears have. So we're really going to have to kind of put that game in the rear view mirror. Focus ahead on the Rams, which is going to be a much tougher challenge, both defensively and offensively. Glad we got the bad game off our chest and still was able to come away with a win. But it was a little disappointing not to see a big blowout like we deserved to see.
I think what makes Monday's victory so frustrating, like we're sitting here looking at the playoff picture after the Vikings won, we're in the 7th seed, thankfully, right? It's the old cliche. It's not even a cliche, but it just happens every year. Vikings control their own destiny, right? It's at some point in December we hear that phrase, right? And here we are, a, a few days before Christmas. The Vikings control their own destiny. But what makes it so frustrating, and Doogie talked about it earlier, right? You make a field goal uh, versus Arizona, you're 8-6. You actually close out Detroit, you know, you're 9-5. Like, these things would cement us into that 6th seed and for sure into the playoffs, right? Like, you could go 1-3 if you took those 2 games, um, and you would still be um, in the playoffs. So it is frustrating. Uh, that's what I keep coming back to after these wins. Like, I'm glad we're fighting. I'm glad we're pulling them out here against teams we should win against, but it still is frustrating. So, Dave, any thoughts from Monday night's game?
Uh, it is frustrating that we play to our opponent versus playing just good ball all the time. There's something that came out today, and that was in the injury report. Kirk Cousins was on it for the first time since 2013 with ribs injury. We don't know what that was. He was supposedly, theoretically, because it was only simulated, limited in practice. And Mason Cole, who had a horrible night against Akeem Hicks, which most guards do, he was DNP for an elbow injury. So we might see Joseph's favorite player, Oli Udo, back over at right guard this weekend if Mason Cole doesn't get healthy quick enough. So, and I wanted to answer Joseph's question. He wanted to know what I was drinking. I'm drinking Cano Bliss IPA from Oscar Blues tonight.
All right, let's do it. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams coming. Ryan, are you going on Sunday?
Yeah, I'll be there. I think my wife and I are gonna be able to make it in.
Your track record is good outside of that
Yeah, we've
Cowboys game.
yeah, I was saying Cowboys and Browns. We've lost, but we've won the other ones I've been at this year. Which, ironically, those 2 games there, I went with my son. So, again, not an overly superstitious person.
Oh, so you're saying your son's the good luck charm, and if we lose this weekend, you're blaming the wife?
No, actually, opposite. So every game I've been to with my wife or friends, we've won. Every game I've been to with my son, we've lost. So eventually, him and I are going to break that trend at some point, but it won't be this Sunday. So
do it on the Bears game last week of the season.
I did give those tickets away so some of my buddies could all go to the game. So yeah, we're not going to be at the Bears game. So may need to scalp some tickets if it comes down to that game and needing a win, and I have my good luck streak continuing with the Rams here. But yeah, I mean it's going to be an interesting game. I think again, obviously people see the Rams, see this high powered offense, Cooper Kupp setting records. Matthew Stafford revitalizing this offense from what Jared Goff brought to it. And again, obviously a stifling defense, Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, and you can go on and on with some of these names. However, they're not. I don't think that they are a team that I'm overly scared of. Do I think we lose? Maybe. I mean, they're a good team. I'm not going to sit here and say that this is a sure win, but they're definitely not unbeatable. I'm definitely more scared, even though we beat them, more scared of the Packers than I am of the Rams. The Rams have laid some eggs. They barely just beat the Seahawks. Again, interdivision game, always a tough game, but they barely just beat the Seahawks. If it weren't for a blown PI call, they might have. The Seahawks might have tied that game, right? So, yes, you're right. They lost to the Niners, and they've lost to teams or have had really close games with teams that, we've either played really well or that we've beaten. So it's definitely not something that I'm overly scared of. I think that we can definitely put up a good fight. Stafford is not immune to playing poorly against a Mike Zimmer defense. We have to be on our P's and Q's. I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Ramsey shadows Jefferson all game. I know they've been playing him a little bit differently this year, kind of more like a Joker type defender. But, with him being able to shadow our best player, especially with Thielen out, would really be a hit against us. But Jefferson's been known to play good against really elite competition as well. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm scared of him going up against anyone, and that includes the best corner in the league. Aaron Donald does frighten me. The way our interior played this last week against Akeem Hicks.
Can I interrupt you there?
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Aaron Donald for a second because, and this is what always surprises me about like Akeem Hicks and Kenny Clark. So I feel like when we face teams with elite defensive linemen that are outside our division, Zimmer does a really good job of scheming them out. Like if we look at like the Browns defensive line, right, like with Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, like schemed those guys out of the picture. I'm blanking on a couple others, but historically Zimmer does a good job keying in on those types of players and making sure they're a non-factor in the game, but he doesn't do it against divisional opponents. He always lets Kenny Clark get the best of us, Akeem Hicks, eventually Thibodeau when the Lions get him next year. I just predicting that now. Those people always seem to do well. So I'll let you continue. I know you said you were nervous for Aaron Donald, but I think I kind of feel the opposite for some reason.
Yeah, and I guess I can kind of see where you're coming from there. I think we do actually handle DNs very well. Joey Bosa, again, we handled very well in that game. I know he made some plays, but we handled them pretty well. Myles Garrett and Clowney you had mentioned. And again, there's a list of players that are good. The difference though is that when we play elite interior players, whether they're in conference or not, Kenny Clark, Akeem Hicks, you got Aaron Donald, you got Chris Jones, we played, I think, like last year, and he tore us up for the Chiefs. Grady Jarrett for the Falcons just tore us up that one year. Until we can solidify that interior, especially where Bradbury and the right guard are, because Ezra Cleveland has played well this year. The one big takeaway from this year on the offensive line, outside of O'Neal just continuing to be dominant,
that was my breakout
candidate. Mm-hmm. Ezra Cleveland has played fantastic, and Darrisaw, I know people are going to sit here and say Darrisaw played poorly last week. He had he probably had a few bad plays, but he had two that stuck out, obviously, that ended up in sacks. But outside of that, and specifically in the run game, he had a fantastic game. I don't want to say he played poorly, because I don't think he really did outside of a couple plays, and that is going to happen. We do need to mitigate those sacks as much as possible, but I think he's played well. Ezra Cleveland has shown to be a very capable guard. So where I'm worried, and again, other teams know this, you scheme your best interior players to go against our right guard, whoever it may be. This week it might be Oli Udoh and Bradbury, and specifically trying to get Bradbury in one-on-one pass reps if you can, which 3-4 teams have a tendency to be able to do that more so than teams who run a standard 4-3 base, which the Rams are more of a 3-4 base team. So we're going to see a lot of Aaron Donald schemed up against either the right guard, Ezra Cleveland, or again making some games to get him against Garrett Bradbury one-on-one. And that's where I'm concerned. So where we need to mitigate that is, again, a strong run game, which the Rams are pretty good against the run, but I think we can still, Dalvin Cook's Dalvin Cook, right? He did look a step slow last week, though. He really did. I don't know if he was just getting beat up a lot by Akeem Hicks and company, but he did seem a step slow. Actually, Kene Wangu actually looked more spry, more,
great.
He had electricity to his, when he was touching the ball. Not saying
fresh,
he's
right?
better than Dalvin.
11 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
more than 11 yards per carry on only 3 carries. And it was just like, if he's getting over 11 yards per carry on 3 carries, you need to give him the ball more. That was one of the frustrations
Yeah.
from Monday night. Alexander
Yeah,
Madison
for
came
sure.
off COVID today. So it
Yeah,
should
and
be
I'm not happy
interesting
about
to
that.
see.
I think we should really lean in on the Kene Wangu train and Madison being more so a spell to maybe a first and second down Dalvin. But he shouldn't be touching the field on third downs. That should be Kene as more of the change of pace back when Dalvin can't
Absolutely.
go. But anyway, so I'm a little nervous about Darren Donald, and they have other good players on that defensive line as well.
Von Miller, future
That
Hall of Famer.
Von Miller is the new acquisition. He's starting to come on a little bit as of late, getting further away from that injury. And then offensively, I mean, again, we've heard about Cooper Kupp. You got Van Jefferson, who is playing super well as a deep threat, and then you got Odell, who's finally showing maybe a somewhat of a glimpse of what he used to be for the Giants. So it should be interesting to see how we try to mitigate that offense. I think I saw in a group chat today, you might just need to double Cooper with a safety and nickel or what closest corner to him,
Yep.
and then just go 1-on-1 everywhere else and hope for the best. So we'll see. We'll see. I think they have a good offensive line. Andrew Whitworth at like age 40 is still playing at a
Still,
very high level. It's just insane. And they got
what's
two
crazy
running
about
backs. Go ahead.
I was gonna say what's crazy about Andrew Whitworth is I remember when the Rams signed him, right? Because it was right when Jared Goff got there, and he was like, he chose them, I think, over the Vikings, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
weren't we in discussions with him? It was the Riley Reef
Yep.
year, which is wild to think it's been that long. But it was the year that Riley Reef came to the Vikings. Andrew Whitworth chose the Rams over us because it was Jared Goff, it was Sean McVey. It was like, I want to be with a competitive team, whatever. But the fact that he's still playing at 40 years old and he's still elite, right? Like we're even seeing it with Trent Williams too, who the Vikings were also connected to at one point in time. It is just it's astonishing, and that was just my little nugget there.
Joseph asked, why did we sign Dakota Dozier back to the team today? The reason is because Mason Cole was a DNP and in the squad today on the injury report. They need a backup.
Ryan, question for you about Odell Beckham. You're a fan of his. He played with Baker. Are you nervous about him facing us again for the second time this season? Typically, only NFC North opponents get the chance to play us twice. And I don't know if maybe I'm overthinking this, but I'm wondering if Odell maybe has some extra insight he can give this Rams offense to, like, hey, this is how they played us when I was with the Browns. Here's something we can exploit that they haven't fixed yet because I'm seeing it on tape. Because typically you play an opponent, you forget about them, right? But now Odell's
Yeah.
played us and he's playing us again with a better team.
Yeah, I understand. I guess kind of the concept there. Also, it is a different scheme completely, though, right? I mean, the Browns and the Rams play a very different scheme. So I wouldn't say very different scheme. They're actually kind of similar, but they're not so alike where we're gonna scheme defensively the same against the Browns as we are going to be against the Rams. But it can provide some insights to what we're trying to do specifically to him and to the other receivers. And the thing is he toasted us. We're lucky that Baker was off his game that day, but he toasted us. I mean, if Baker hits him, in stride 3 different times, there's touchdowns. One hit, I think, the back of our DB's helmet. One, I think, was just sailed, and then one, I think, Odell dropped. So, I mean, there's definitely he definitely got the best of us that day, and we are lucky that it just wasn't executed. Otherwise, that'd be one score game that we'd have in our tool belt there. So yes, I think to your point, he's going to have some insights as to how we are playing him and how we can probably expect it, because obviously he's close to Juice Landry, right?
Yeah.
And so he's going to be able to get some insights on how we played the nickel. Or I'm sorry, how that we played the slot and whatnot. So I definitely think that there's going to be some takeaways there, and we definitely need to make sure that we're doing a better job being more effective in man coverage, honestly, because I think we're going to need to play a little bit more of that this week.
Yeah. Before we get to score predictions here, I want from both of you just some keys to victory. Dave, I'll start with you. I kind of cut you off on your
Oh, that's
your
okay.
little segment there, but give me some keys to victory here.
Pressure on Goff is going to be a big one. The Vikings tied a
Stafford.
record today for themselves. We've had 14 multiple sack games. The Vikings haven't done that since 1974. And that was a 14-game season. And they could break that by having multiple sack games and lots of pressure come Sunday.
That defensive line is playing very well without Griffin and Hunter, which gives me Skull Vikes, which gives me a lot of hope.
Wanham's
I think
steadily gotten better, and Richardson has found a second life out there on the outside as defensive end.
Yep, Richardson. I can't. I wanted to talk to Doogie about this tonight, and I forgot. But Michael Pierce is the fact that he came back from a torn tricep this season,
Elbow.
and yeah, which they just called an elbow injury,
Well,
which
tricep
technically I guess
attached
they're
is
not wrong. But he has been far and away better than what I expected him to be in his appearances on the defensive line. And Dalvin Tomlinson has probably been a little bit disappointing in that regard, but he probably does more that doesn't necessarily grab your attention. He probably sucks up those double teams a little bit more. But yes, Dave, I agree. Get that pressure, that defensive line. They can build on that last game for sure. Don't let that fake Justin Fields kneel get Blake Lynch all up in his head, man. He can still do it. He can do it against Stafford this weekend. So, Ryan, what is your keys to victory this weekend?
Yeah, I think a quick and decisive pass game. Usually, I'm all for trying to take big, deep shots, but again, I just can't see how our interior holds up against Aaron Donald sufficiently. So I think to mitigate that, you're making quick decisions in the pass game. You're running the ball effectively. I think that's the only way you can stay alive on offense against Aaron Donald. And again, obviously, trying to throw away from Jalen Ramsey. As much as you can. So we're going to need the D.D. Westbrooks that's in KJ Osborne's to step up a little bit in this game, and of course Tyler Conklin. But also Jefferson, like I said earlier, Jefferson can win one-on-one against anyone in this league, in my opinion. So I don't care if he's going to go up against Jalen Ramsey. If he hits that matchup well, let's and I think Jefferson is almost unguardable in cross routes. So just running that consistently if you can, and hitting him when he gets open on those is great. And then on defense, like I said, you just have to. I'm not worried about their run game. They have two good running backs, but I don't think that their run game is anything to write home about. But if you let that run game get going, it does make Cooper Kupp's job so much easier, because now where Cooper Kupp lives, obviously he's been making a living everywhere, I should say. But specifically, he's over the middle, similar to what Jefferson's been doing this year, getting behind the linebackers, in front of the safeties, and away from the corners, right? And that's where he's making his living. So if we can not have to worry about the run game as much, and our linebackers can hit the depth marks that they need to hit to kind of mitigate that a bit, and please, God, keep Anthony Barr away from guarding him one-on-one. I think we can maybe mitigate that a bit. Again, I don't think you're going to stop this offense But again, I mean, what, they only put up 17 points against the Seahawks yesterday. So, I mean, we have a chance to be able to be effective. We just have to execute and not make the big mistakes.
You got it.
Before we get to predictions, I will give my keys to victory here. It's all it is. It's very simple. Just finish your drives. When you get to the red zone, don't settle for field goals. Get the touchdowns. We've seen it happen too many times. I want to see Zimmer. You're at home. You have a little bit more leeway to be aggressive. If it's 4th and 2, 4th and 3, whatever, 4th in short, and you're within your own 30-yard line, I want to see us go for it. I don't want to settle for field goals, especially against this Rams offense. I think you need to get touchdowns on the board. This team is too good to settle for field goals. So it's pretty simple, but I don't want to settle for field goals. I want to score touchdowns. So we didn't get a chance last week to meet. We didn't have a show. So I'm going to chalk everybody up as
we would all pick the Bears. Yeah, we are all gonna pick us to beat the Bears. Is what I was saying.
Yeah. So for the first time this year, I think I'm 500. I don't know about you guys. Ryan's probably a little bit above. He's probably 8-6, right?
I marked it down. Let's see. He would have gone to.
Hey, Brandon.
I've got him as 8-5. He would have gone to 9-5. Guest would have gone to 9-5. Actually,
all right. So David.
Why do I have the guest at 8-6?
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. So that checks out. So Ryan's 9-5 on the year. Dave and I are 7-7. I'll go last, but we'll start with you, Ryan. Give me your score prediction, and then give me a bold prediction as well.
Bold prediction, score prediction. All right, and if we need a guess, my son is just chilling here, so I don't know if we have a guest pick or if Miles pick. All right, so I'll go first. I don't know why, but I'm feeling somewhat optimistic. I don't know why. I'm not usually. I try to be realistic as possible, but I'm feeling optimistic. I think we're gonna win this week, and I'm gonna go with a score of. It's gonna be a close game, obviously. Game-winning field goal at the end, 31-28, 31-28. Last second field goal to win the game. And for bold prediction, let's go with Justin Jefferson mossing Jalen Ramsey. I don't know if that's like for a touchdown, whatever, but just he's gonna on Monday
at some point
on Monday, a Monday night countdown or whatever. Randy Moss is gonna do the "You Got Moss" on Jalen Ramsey with Justin Jefferson causing it.
I love that. Is your son ready for a score prediction? Does he have a bold prediction?
You got to do. Sorry, he can't hear probably, so you got to do a score prediction. Okay, so score. We play the Rams. So who's going to win and by what's the score? And then give a bold prediction, which just means like, just like something. Okay, you got it. All
right. All right, buddy. What do you got?
I think we're gonna win, and it's gonna be 27-19.
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay. I'm done. No bold predictions.
No bold prediction.
No bold predictions.
He needs to.
I mean,
sorry, guys.
I will say that his bold prediction is probably a safety because I don't know how else they get to 19, unless they just randomly go for 2 points somewhere. Right?
4 field goals and a touchdown.
Okay, Dave. All right, Dave, what is your score prediction and what is your bold prediction?
I don't feel good about this, except for logically, I sort of do because they got a shorter week, and as Doogie says, they're coming across country again. They came from the East Coast. They just played. They got a short week. They got to fly back to us for a day after Christmas, so they're probably flying out on Christmas. That's got to suck. Let's give it Vikings relatively low-scoring game. 21-17. 15.
21-15. All right.
Hey, the
So,
defense last week held Chicago to 3 points for the entire game up until that very last second.
Bold prediction, Vikes win. I like it, Joseph.
Yeah, I just saw that too. I think I'm still waiting for a convincing win. And I feel like if you beat the Rams by more than one score, like that's a convincing win, right? Especially
Yeah.
at the
They're
so
playoff
I'm gonna
contenders.
say 27-17. I guess I copied Justin in the chat, but he said Rams. I'm gonna say 27-17 Vikings win. My bold prediction is that for the first time this season, Cooper Kupp is held in check. Now, what that is, I don't know. I'm gonna maybe less than 80 yards and no touchdowns. I feel like that's keeping Cooper Kupp in check. If anybody goes off this game, I think it's Odell Beckham. I think Zimmer will shut down Cooper Kupp on offense and make the other guys beat him. So.
Well, do you think Eric Kendricks is going to have a game because he didn't make the Pro Bowl, and plus the BS?
Is Eric Kendricks playing? Did we get any news on fines, suspensions, anything?
He's not going to be suspended for that.
He's not going to get suspended.
I hope not.
He shouldn't have even been kicked out of that game. I mean, it was a penalty for sure. He shouldn't have got kicked out of that game.
I agree for sure.
But I would love to see him get another interception. Maybe a pick six.
Yeah, I would too.
I'd love to see.
We need a pick six. We have not
kickoff.
I'm actually changing my score prediction because what Dave said actually makes sense. I think it is actually going to be a low-scoring game. So I'm going to go 17-14. But, yeah, I still think we win.
All right. 4 people picked the Vikings to win. And more in the chat. Justin is the only one that looks to be going Rams this weekend. So we'll see who's right on Sunday. That'll be it for us tonight. We had a longer show with Doogie on board. Had to fit a lot in here this evening. I want to say thank you to everybody.
Thanks everyone for sticking around. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. That's a time investment, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate Doogie hopping on, Miles, even though he's not feeling too great. And Ryan and Dave, I want to thank you guys for doing this week in, week out. And we'll continue to do it moving forward. But I hope that this weekend, Dave, I know your family's in town. Ryan, I know you got some little kids there. But I hope that you guys are able to celebrate with your family and enjoy this weekend. So as Doogie said, stay positive and test negative. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we will see you back Sunday night or Sunday afternoon after the Vikings victory over the Rams with CTP final score. It'll be me, Dave, Flip, and Jason, hopefully. And then we'll kick it back off again next Monday and head into the new year. And hopefully it's rivalry week. We're playing Green Bay after that. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Skol Vikes.
Skol, everyone. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.